let's decide the agenda first, like what we are going to do in this webinar. Like we will discuss like why web security and what is exactly the HTTP protocol, why we use this and why we require this web security. Secondly, we understand like what is a three-tier architecture and like how it's impact the security specific to web application security, right? Then we discuss and like deep dive into SQL injection, and we will do some kind of uh, live attacks, okay, and live demonstration of SQL injections. We will in this session we will like discuss various type of SQL injections, right? And then we go and see how we mitigate, right? How we mitigate these SQL injections, right? Attacks, and then we cover in this session how like what is the career perspective, right? And like what are the job opportunities if anyone like join this course that we provide, right? And then we open the Q&A sessions, right? And I will answer your queries, right? So firstly, why web security? So there are many aspects. It's depend on the professional and the experienced guy who exactly understand why cybersecurity. But as by my observation and my experience in the industries, so the main problem is the gap, security gap, the security gap between the security professional who do the testing and the application developer who are basically um, uh, develop this application, right? So as an application perspective, as a developer perspective, he don't know like what exactly is the security concern. He's most focused on the features, like that they are going to build. And if you go for the security professional side, they don't know exactly deeply how these features work, right? So they're mostly focused on the professional side, like the security side. So that's why there is a gap. So nowadays what organization do at the very beginning, they just start the involvement of a security team, right? At the very beginning when they start the project, when they start the process. So just a bit little bit like how this work, there is a change management thing in organization. So whenever a new requirement for a development, right? So in that chain management there are different members, like your enterprise security architecture guys there, your security guys there, your application developer is there, and at the very beginning they decide who need to what are the tasks for different team members, and in this way they will reduce this gap, okay? So there are other concerns also, like growing cyber threats, protection of sensitive data, and the business continuity. Okay, I'll focus. So these things, like as you know, like nowadays there are various ransomware attack, phishing attacks, and data breaches happens. And most of the breaches happen nowadays also using SQL injection specific to exfiltration of data. Okay, next slide I will show you like how many breaches happened in 2019. Also, there is some breach that happened using SQL. And so let's say there is some bank, and a financial bank is there, and they have some sensitive credit information. Okay, so if there is SQL injection or any other type of attacks possible, so that protection is breached by the attacker. So this is also a concern. So that's why there is a protection of sensitive data. And third one is very important: business continuity and availability. So that is very important, because suppose if your server is down, so means whole business is down. So that's why protection against DOS attack or some other, even using SQL injection, people can do DOS attack and just run off their these servers. So there is no availability over the internet. So these are the concerns. That's why security. Okay, let's talk about big common attacks cybersecurity threats. This is just an introduction. I'll go to SQL injection in more detail. But this common web security threats nowadays is like, if you go to OWASP top 10, and you will find there are OWASP top 10 is a community that actually organized attacks, web attacks in 10 different separate categories, A1 to A10. So most of them like injection attacks, like your cross-site scripting is an injection attack, your SQL injection is a injection attack. Then you have a cross-domain attacks. So in cross-domain attack, if you see there is one attack I mentioned here is cross-site request for the CSRF attack. This is also very powerful attacks, uh, and it's used to to f- to capture data. Or CSRF attack is basically something. Suppose you are opening a site in a browser, and then in next tab you just open a link, and what happen when you open this link? Some transaction happen on your site, on your banking site. So you don't know, right? So this is cross domain attacks. Then there is DOS type of attack, DDoS, distribution denial of attacks. Then phishing attacks that are social. What is uh, social attacks, right? Zero day attacks and zero day attacks are something that are like there are no patches. So let's say Windows have a vulnerability, but Windows doesn't release any patch for that. So in that case, that is called zero day. So one can exploit it easily, right? So when Windows release the patch, then it's not zero day. Like we can patch it. Then there are few other attacks that remote code execution attacks. Remote code execution attacks is like they attacker just log in the system, and by sending malicious code to the server, it will try to access the shell of that particular server. So that's the case. Then we have LFI, RFI, and brute force attacks, right? So these are LFI and brute force are related to the web application attacks. Okay, so in 2014, 2018, there are some notable SQL injection vulnerabilities. Say if you see Tesla, Cisco, and Fortinet, like they have like SQL injection vulnerabilities, and it is reported, right? And even Cisco, this big attack happened. They just gained the shell to that system, right? So these are the some notable. Uh, so Sorry. So these are the breaches enabled by SQL injection. So in 2019, I think this Go shell attack and HP Gary breach. These are breaches happened using SQL injection. Okay, and these are very recently. Okay, so let's talk about web protocol. So, what is web? HTTP. So, HTTP is basically a protocol that is used by the application layer to provide communication between two end users, end machines. Okay, so it's basically a client server protocol. The client send the request, and the server send a response. Okay, I'll show you practically how this thing happened. So there is one initially when 1990s, this Netscape is the first browser that is introduced by Netscape, and this browser basically is the first one that actually provide a used HTTP. And after that, we required some secure version of that. That's why there is HTTPS protocol now. It is used by organizations. So, what is HTTP? So, how this thing works? So, see, HTTP, there is a request, there is a response, right? And I'll show you like how it's look like. So, this burp suite is basically a proxy between your web server and this machine. Okay, this browser basically in your browser, and it's a between in your browser and web server. So whenever a request is sent using HTTP, it firstly go to this burp suite, and burp suite forward this request to the web server and vice versa. So like this thing work. Okay, so meanwhile this start, I'll discuss a few more things, then I show you. Okay, so this is basically the HTTP request. So basically this is end-to-end communication, right? So there are different there are in between there are different things, right? Different net there is a network of different hosts there. So I will explain you, like when we go for three-tier architecture, and we will learn like how exactly the communication happened, right? So now talk about uh, URL. So what is URL? So this is very important, right? And this is the basic for any type of injection attacks or any type of web application attacks. So URL means uniform resource locator. So what happened? So when you write HTTPS, let's say example.com in your browser, so what will happen? So there are different sections, right? There are different parts of that particular domain, right? Particular URL basically. So the first part, HTTPS, if you see here, this HTTPS is basically a scheme. Uh, in this case, you can say protocol. Like here, we are using HTTPS. If it is like FTP, so here we can mention FTP, right? Then we have a domain, example.com. Domain basically it is the name of the server, right? So why domain is important? When Because the DNS server required this information to get the IP address, right? So this is called domain. So, or you can say simply the website name. Uh, then we have a port number 80. Here it's is using 80. You can use any port, but you need to make a configuration on the web server side. And if you are using port 443, then you don't need to specify because it is a HTTPS connection. Or if you are using HTTP, then you don't need to specify port number 80. Okay, this is important. This one blog, right? This blog is basically a path. So what happened in web server? We have a root directory. In root directory, we have all your files. Let's say there is a root directory uh, blog, and in blog you have all the PHP files or all your statics files or HTML files or JavaScript files. So this is the root directory of the web server. So then there are other things like this question mark sign is basically shows that this is a we from here we can start the query parameters. So if you see, there are two query parameters. One is like search, second one is sort by. So if you have single parameter query parameter, then you don't need to mention this ampersand sign. But if you have more than one, then you need to mention this ampersand sign, right? So at the last there is a fragment. After hash there is a fragment. So what it's used, actually it's not sent to the server. What it do, it's basically stored on the cache of the browser. So whatever whatever after the hash, it's stored on the browser. It's not go to the server side. So it is used by developer. Sometimes they need to do some calculation based on this thing. Let's say suppose there is a request sent, right, and the server responds, and then the developer need to do some calculation, right? So he just need to fetch the value from this fragment and do the calculation and render the response to the server, to the browser, right? I hope this you can understand. Let me check like the machine is ready. Okay, so this is a Kali machine, that is a Kali operating system. So okay, so okay, let's talk about a bit of this HTTP methods, right? I want to cover this fast. Then we go to a main SQL injection part. So see, for communication between server and client, uh, there are some HTTP syntax. Okay, and that syntax tell the server, okay, this request basically the client request a server some data. So this request, what type of request it is, so it is called method. So let's say the server have get request, post request, put request, and delete request. So let's say let if we search something, some there is a search box, and you guys search something. So in that case, you send that the browser send the get request. But if there is a registered page and you send some data in on during registration, so that's a post request. Put request is used in APIs, but it mostly used to update the information again. And delete is basically for delete any information, right? So there are other methods also, but these are the important one. And this is the request and response format that I will show you. Okay. Okay. Mm, okay. So how this request look like, that I will show you. If I run verb, then it easy for you to understand. So this verb is very useful tool. This is a community edition, but they have pro edition also. That exactly you can use collaborator. That is important. You can find it in this version. Okay. Anyway, so I just need to mention which port I want to run this proxy, and okay, okay, set on. Let hit this again. See how when you type something, right, when you type the URL on the on this browser, it will this is a get request, right? So if you see, this is a get request, and these are all the headers: host, user agent, accept, connection, cookie. These are all the headers of that. So when server look this request, it look like this, right, to the server. So this is a syntax. So how it's work, like you have a get request, you have a, this is what, this is a path. This is the path after domain that I mentioned. It's a path, right? Then we have the host name. Then we have the user agent. User agent means what browser we are using. Then we have encoding. So like what type of encoding this browser have and support, right? Then we have a connection. Connection means like what type of keep alive means after this request, don't close the connection, TCP connection. I'll send, means this client will send more requests, right? That means that's a cookie. Okay. And if I forward this request I will forward this request to, okay, and I send response. So this is the response. This is the response from the server. So this is the response header, and the below that is basically the actual data, your HTML or your static or dynamic data, right? Okay, so most important thing here is like your HTTP version. 200 means this is okay from the server. Okay, you got the successful results. And this thing, if you see the server header, here it's mentioned what type of server we are using, right? What type of server we are communicating with, like this browser. When I say view, means this browser communicated with. So if you see, this is mentioned is Apache, right? Apache is a web server, and it's mentioned X powered by there is an application server that is basically a PHP. So that means this exactly when you go for testing, right? When you do some vulnerability assessment and penetration testing in companies, so this is a low vulnerabilities. We will report this thing in a low vulnerability, and we call it like version disclosure, right? And below that there is a content header, right? So it tells like what is the sorry content length. That means is 5836 bytes. So that means like this content contains this much data, right? And then the content type. So there are three things important. Like content type is basically this is HTML data, content length, then we have this x powered by which server it is and which web server it is, right? And the date. So and this status code. Okay. So this is how look like this thing, and I will show you one more. F- uh, it's post request how's look like. Okay, so see, post request is mostly used when we have a data, like when you have a register. Let's suppose there is a registration page, right? You register for any application. So if you see the difference between post and get is like post have a uh, body, post request have a body. So like if you see, this is the body. This is the body of this post request. The username, password, and there is a button named submit. So based on this replied. Okay, the same type of header information because it's communicating to the same server. And what extra is here is like content length. Content length because you have body. That's why it's mentioned. We are sending 39 bytes. Okay. I think that's it. Delete is just like simple. There's a delete header in that, and that just delete the request. So it's not mostly used commonly, right? Uh, Nowadays, we use delete basically in APIs more. Okay. Now move to a next slide. Three-tier architecture, and that is very important. Uh, right. So just I'll let's suppose we have a browser and web server, right? So we'll talk about here the real scenario, like how's work in corporate, basically in enterprise environment. So let's say we have a client, right? So this is our client browser, you can say, right? So browser, firstly, this is server. We can say it's a web server. Okay. This web server is connected with your application server. Okay. So this is your application server, and this application server is further connected with your database server, right? Bidirectional. Now let's say this is an organization and they have their uh, front end server. We can call front end server. You can call it like CDN. You can call it like a reverse proxy, and you can call it like firewall something. Okay. So so this reverse proxy have a public IP, right? So whatever connection HTTPS connection is established, it's established between your CDN and your reverse proxy, right? So it's depend on the organization. They want this connection between server between web server or any other server is HTTP or HTTPS. For security purpose, let's say they are using HTTPS communication with a web server, right? And this whole network, like this whole architecture, this whole architecture is known as three-tier architecture, right? And one more thing, like let's suppose in this architecture, so how attacker basically means how this architecture impact and how attacker need to understand this architecture, so he or she can understand like why where we temper the security, right? So here if you see this whole network, like web server, your application server, your database server, these are like in DMZ zone, demilitarized zone, right? So they are connecting in a parallel, right? And in parallel, and not in series. And behind that, if you go behind that, so what happened? There is a private company network, and it's maybe a firewall here. So this is so this client come from the internet, right? Using browser, it firstly hit your CDN network. Then this CDN network is based on it's allow or not, it's communicate with your web server, and your web server is communicate with your application server, and that application server connect your database server, and based on that this information goes like that. Okay, so there is another firewall here, okay, and that firewall is connected to your company network. That is a private network that's not accessible from the internet. Okay, so these three things, one, two, three, and this communication, this network is known as like three-tier architecture, right? Now, now understand this web application server. Okay, so this web application server, how it's work? Like, let's say we have Apache. It's a web server, and that web server have a, let's say, where www is a directory that is that basically contain our website, and in that directory you will see your HTML files, our JavaScript files, right? So this this is connected with, as I mentioned, like this application server. This application contains what? It's a PHP code there. Okay, so I will tell you like when we go for more detailed video slides, so I'll explain like what exactly is the code for communication. So here is your DB server. Okay, so this PHP, if I specific talk about to SQL injection, so or any other connectivity, this PHP code contains a connectivity code. There is a config file. That config file make a connection with this database server. Okay, and this PHP code have written a SQL queries in their code in this server in their in that file, coding file, and that file exactly communicate run that query to this database server and fetch the data back. And this data is dynamic data, right? This is dynamic data, and here HTML is static data. So what it do, this PHP add the static data, this is static data in HTML, add the static data, dynamic data with this file. So web server have a static data, application have a dynamic data, and they both like add the dynamic data in a file and send, not exactly in a file, it's basically a response request, response message, and send that message to the client back. So this way this whole communication work. I hope this you guys understand this. So this is important. When we open this query session, if you have any query you can ask me about this. Okay, so this is the same diagram. So if you see, this is a browser that is try to communicate using firewall. with the internal network, and that have a DMZ is there, and that DMZ is basically hosted a different servers. Like if you see here, there is one more firewall, and this database server is basically behind that firewall, right? So it's depend where they want to store it, on DMZ, on the corporate private network, where I mentioned there is a second firewall behind that they want to. So it's depend on the architecture, but this is the general accepted architecture. There is some modification based on the requirement of the organization, right? Uh, so as I mentioned, like this is a web application server try to communicate application server and try to communicate database server. Based on that, this whole communication happened. Okay. Okay, before going to SQL injection, uh, let's understand some basic database related terminologies. uh, so why exactly we need database, right? What is the issue with the existing file system? So issue with the existing file system is that, like, suppose like in when we have operating system, we have a disk, and disk have a file system. Like in Windows we have NTFS, and Linux we have ext3. So let's say if we talk about Linux, and in Linux we have a files everywhere, right? Everything in Linux is file. So in files, if you want to access something, you need to either you can give like a read access, or you can give write access to any user, right? But if you want to give access three four rows of particular file, that's not possible. This is the main reason, like then we require database. This is one of the main reasons. And uh, s- uh, so that's why we require databases, right? So what is database? So database is basically a collection of all the what is it? All the tables, right? And combine into a single unit that is known as database. And database have multiple tables under it, and that multiple tables have multiple columns. Okay, so there are different types of databases. One is like your RDMS databases, non-relational database. RDMS databases means relation-based database. So if we have a table, and that table contains like name, age, so that is a relation, right? It shows some kind of relation of age, name, parentage, address, right? And if it is like non-relation based, non-relation based is like, suppose you have a Amazon product, or someone is there is a review option, right? You can give review on Amazon. So there is no relation in that, like in that comments, right? Different people give different uh, reviews, and no relationship between them, and some guys just give the review like that is not related to that product also. So how we can store that data? So in that there is a different categories of data. Like if you heard about big data, like your Hadoop Java based, and we have like Cassandra is one of the, and we have MongoDB that is more famous, uh, is like used for not SQL one, right? Okay, so in this, like I'm using MySQL database and PHP, okay, for demo purpose, right? So good. Okay, so let me show you. So how we connect to database? So here I have a database and MySQL, and it's hosted in Kali machine also here, and client is also there. So I am connecting with the MySQL. Okay. So this is my SQL database look like, and if you run this command show databases, so sorry, so databases, so there are like these are the databases: client database, information schema, MySQL, performance schema, and sys. These are the databases here. And the language that I'm using here, right? Show database. The commands I'm using here for communicate with the database is basically structure query language, right? So what is structure query language? Let's talk about a bit. So structure query language is basically 1970s developed, right? And slowly it's like adopted by all the vendors. Firstly adopted by Oracle, right? And so everyone like nowadays, if they have a relation based database, they have SQL structure. They are using SQL. There is some change with the syntax, but the logic is same at the back end, right? Okay, so this SQL language is further divided into two broad categories. One is known as like your data DDL, that is known as data definition language, and second one is DML, that is data manipulation language. Suppose if you are creating a database, or if you are creating a customer table, there is no data in it, just a structure of that table. So let's say if I'm creating a table customer with three columns: ID, user, and password. Okay, so this is basically I'm defining the definition of that particular table, right? Okay, so and second one is our data manipulation. If you like perform operations like that manipulate, let's say you insert the data, you update the data, you delete the data, you merge the tables, you select something from the data, from the tables, right? So these are like manipulations, so these are called data manipulation language. So let's say mm, I have a database name client, right? So this I created. So if I want to use this database, I use command use client, use database client, use client. Okay, so use client is the command. So now I want to see how many tables in that particular database. So I use command uh, show, then I will show tables. Okay, so there is only one table in that is known as a customer table. And if you want to see the description of this table, you can use description, then customers. Okay, so it will show you like there are three fields, right? There are three fields, and that fields basically ID, user, and password. Fields mean column names. And what type of column it is? Like if you go for ID, then there is that is an integer type. Then user, there is a character type, and password also character type. And ID is a primary key. If you know about database, primary key is unique. We don't create duplicate value for the same for the two different rows, right? Same value for the two different rows, right? So now the scary part, select. If I write select star from customers, okay, so there are two entries in that table. Star means all columns, right? So select star from customer. So these are the two values here, right? One is known as like this based on the ID. If you see, there are two values. One is John, second one is Alice. So they have their users and passwords, right? These two information is there. Okay, now start. I'm going to start the SQL injection queries that we are going to use in future in like in demos when we really perform this attack. Here, I'm just showing like how database interpreted those commands, right? So, okay. So let's talk about a bit of this. I'll show you practically how this thing work, right? So this is select star from customer. Let's say uh, if I want to fetch something based on the condition, so there is a where clause, right? So I will use select star from customer table, okay, and where I say ID equal to one, so it will give me John, okay, and if I said if it is like 2, then it's give me second row, and if I change the column and I write it uh, user is equal to something lice, okay, so it will give me because there is a space, okay, so this way based on the this thing it will give you the data. So so there is select and where, right? And now let's talk about one command that we are going to use is order by. Order by is basically used for sorting, right? By default, it do ascending order sorting. So let's say if I said select uh, star from customer, right? Star from customers and order by one. Okay. If you said order by two, then you can understand. So what happened if I said order by one? So this table basically is sorted based on the ID one, right? Based on the ID, based on the column ID, right? If I type because if I type order by two, that means it's sort by user based on column two. So we'll see Alice become the first row and John become the second because alphabetically A comes first. Okay. So if you do it like three, you will see six. First character of this password is six. First row is seven. Second one is six. So six become first row. So it will like. So what will happen if I write order by four? So this is interesting. So if you write order by two, you will get an error. Unknown column 4 in order clause. That means, so if there is a database, so if we need to identify how many columns in that particular table, we can use this command order by, and we just order by 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. If there is a if there is more than column that we are injecting is basically give you an error, right? So let's suppose you are a attacker, and somehow I will tell you later like how we inject this payload, but somehow you are able to inject this query order by. Okay, this query is already written select star from customers, but order by you can able to inject. So you can do one, two, three, four, and you can identify how many columns are there, right? This is one thing. Second, I'll show you union. So there is a union based SQL injection. How it's work. Let's suppose there is a where class where ID equal to one. Okay, ID equal to one, and let's say this is the I add one command, union. Union means you are combining now one more carries, multiple carries, right? Union, select 1, 2, 3. So what exactly happened? If you see, there is a one more row, 1, 2, 3 at the bottom of this table. Okay, this is not a table. This is a result of this table, right? On this, based on this query. So if you see here, 1 to 3, so you need to understand the processing. You need to understand the processing of this particular query. Firstly, it run this query, select star from customer with ID equal to 1. After processing, it fetch the data, then it add 1, 2, 3 at the. So if I write instead of 2, if I write test string, then you can see there is test right at the bottom. Okay, and same while if you add one more column, 1, 2, 3, 4, then you get an error because there is only three column. Okay, and you are adding fourth one, right? So there is error. There is a difference of number of column errors, right? Okay. One more thing is interesting here. If you see, I add this 1, 2, 3. So developer write a code. Let's say it's write a code. It's only one. It's developer write a code in such a way like it's only one want a row that is based on the ID one. Let's say, and they have 10 rows in that. Okay, if there is 10 rows in that, and by your query you add one more row, it's become 11. But the logic is written in PHP is for just for 10, right? So you need to make a table in such a way it will show your data, your row that you are injected, right? So how we can do it? Like you can do it using this. There is one command, limit 1 is to 1. If you write zeros to 1, it will give you first row, and if you write 1 is to 1, second row, then row. So this command is mostly not work because we don't know exactly how many how many rows in is there, right? On from the front end, from the browser we don't know, right? Here we know, but in browser we don't know. So there is one more technique for that. If you use id equal to -1, then you get the last row. Okay, if you use like in array in C, if you use minus, it will display the last character, right? Same like that. If you use minus hyphen sign, okay, with that, whatever the number is, but if you use hyphen, even it is string, if you use hyphen, then you get the last uh, last row. In our case, it's an injected one. Okay. I hope you understand this. Now we move to one more concept and then we go for a deck. Okay. Uh, okay, let me open the slide. So this one I explained to you. This is a union-based statements that okay. This is important. SQL comments. I forget to explain this. SQL comments is helpful. Suppose this is the query, right? So this is the exact query. But if I write something garbage, so it will give you error. There is a syntax problem. The syntax is not correct. So if I use this one, so the rest of the thing become comment and the query work fine, right? Or if I use this one, then also it's work. Or there is multi-line comment, and this is very helpful when we go for SQL injection. So okay, so this way you can comment it rest of the text or query, right? So if you see attacks like authentication bypass, it's mostly depend on this comment type of thing. Okay. One uh, one concept, information schema. So what is information schema in that databases? So every database have a schema, if specifically to RDMS. So let's say what information schema contain is basically a metadata of other databases. So it's like a first database that contain the metadata of other databases, right? So if we have access, right, if we have access to that particular database, so what one can do using this database, one can able to find the database names, database tables, database column names, and even data also, right? So I will show you few queries. Let's say if I run this command, so in MySQL, this schema is known as information schema. And information schema is the database name, dot schema is the table name. So you can write database dot table also in this way also, right? So let's say if I run this command, uh, select schema name, okay, select SCHEMA schema name from information schema. What is the table name? That is known as schema. SCHEMA. Okay, see, if I use command show databases, same thing you can find using this command. And when we go for SQL injection, we'll use these commands, right? Mm, let's say if you want to see the table name for client, right? Let's say, so you can type select table name, right? From information schema, the table name is tables, okay? And I need to mention database name. So that is known as table schema. Table schema that is equal to we want to search for client. Select table name from information dot tables. Sorry, where clause I forget. Uh, where means where schema table schema equal to client, right? So it will show this table, right? So if I type date and now we know the table name, so we'll type the table name is equal to something customers, okay? And we want the columns, the information schema dot columns is the columns name, is a columns table, and we want column name. Okay, so based on this condition, where database is like our client and table name is customer, we're trying to fetching the column name, right? So these are the columns, right? And then we just type select star from this table name customer, and we'll get the data, right? That's easy. Okay. uh, so if you understand this concept, so I think it's easy for you now to understand this SQL injection, and very easy, right? So what is SQL injection? So SQL injection is a vulnerability in which the attacker interfering with the SQL queries that an application make to a database. That I told you, like, so we just doing some interference with the SQL queries, but from the front end. Okay, from the front end, we're doing make some. We will there is a user control web parameter or attacker control parameter, and that parameter will uh, make some changes in the SQL. Okay. If you okay, let's firstly understand how it looks like in front end. Okay, so let's so I told you, like, this PHP code is written in application server, right? And that make a connectivity with the database server. So if you see what type of configuration it is, if you see there is a host name, means database IP, then or domain, then there is a username password, then we make a connection with the username and password, and then there is a query, right? This query is basically run by the PHP code on that particular database. And if you see, then we have, based on this query, we have results. Then based on the results, uh, they display that results, right, on the front end, right? They add this. If you see echo is basically in PHP to print, okay, on the browser. So it will, okay, and they are using HTML tags here, if you see. And this thing is basically rendered on browser by the server, right? And if you see this code, okay, so let's say there is a URL example.com, okay, example.com one. And if you okay, I'll show you here. Let's say in a front end there is a URL, right? And that URL is like this. So there is a parameter id equal to 1, right? And if I change the id equal to 2, if I change the id equal to 2, based on that some data is rendering, right, based on this id, like a show in database. Okay. So how this code is written on the back end, right? So it's written like that. So id parameter, so it, what in PHP what happened, this request id, that is the this one browser id one, right? It fetch the value 1, and it create a new parameter id, same name id, and store the value 1 here. Then it will use this query, select first name last name from the user where id equal to 1. Here it's replace id with 1. Okay, then it's do some calculation, and based on that it will reflect it, means it will reflect it back this first name and last name, right? So we will see first name and last name, okay, on the browser. So so this is the vulnerability. This is the vulnerability here. Okay. So this is SQL vulnerability, and how we can do it, I'll show you. Okay. So now suppose this one is there, and I add inverted comma, right? Inverted comma here. Okay. And so if you see here, this query will change in backend. It's become one hyphen. And this query basically break the context of, break the syntax, basically break the syntax of query, and it will give you error. Okay, it will give you error. There is some syntax problem in SQL injection, in SQL, right? So this way you can break it, the query, right? Now come to a demo part, and I'll show you how exactly this attack happened, and I will do it manually so you get an understanding, right? So SQL impact is basically confidentiality also, integrity also, availability also. Okay, and remote code vibration also. It's depend like if we have access to it, right, to the operating system commands. Okay, so bit fast, like there are different type of SQL injections. There is in-band, blind, and out-band. I will try to cover in-band, error-based, and union-based in more details, and then some part are blind. SQL injection out of band is basically is not technique is same, but just to send the data outside from web server to some outside to other server, you can say. Okay, so we'll see that. Now come to demo. So let's say there is a website, right? Test PHP onehub.com. It's a open site. It's basically developed by Aconetics. That's a scanner. They provide different security solutions for testing purpose. Okay, so if you go to this page, artist, and if you see this artist have a different posts, and that post have a comments. So if I click on any artist, so see there is artist equal to 1. Okay, so this is a scenario, right? So what how we can check like if it is SQL injection here or not. So I will change, firstly I will change 1 to 2. Okay, it will change the information, right? So that means somewhere it will fetch the data based on the this parameter artist, right? And from the database. So based on these three, it will fetch some value based on to some base value. So what I will do first, I will add the inverted comma. Same thing that I told you. uh, okay, so same thing, select star from customer where id equal to 1, right? And there's semicolon, right? Customers, I think, select star, mistake. Okay, customers. Okay, so if I add this thing, so okay, searching for another inverted comma, and this. Okay, so you get an error like that. Now the comment thing I told you. Now, so it's though, so the query becomes something like mm, it will become like this, right? So this break the context, right? So what I do, I will make it comment like this. Okay, minus minus that I show you, like. So if I make it, so rest of the part become comment, and this is the query that that works, right? The same way. So if you see, if I add my hyphen hyphen. Okay, why it's not working hyphen? Because this is integer type. Okay, see, if id is equal to, let's suppose if it is integer, right? If it is integer, if I add inverted comma, then it will give you, like if I add an inverted comma, because there is not in no inverted comma this side. So that's why it show the address error, because if it is like string like abc something, then I need to, because there is one side there is inverted comma there and the other side there is inverted comma, but I add one more inverted comma, make the rest of the query in commented. So that's why it's not giving error. Okay, but if it is integer type, then you don't need to add this inverted comma, right? Okay, so this is a okay. Now I need to identify the columns. Okay, so how can I do it? So this plus means, don't confuse with the plus. Plus and 20 is basically is called URL encoding. Okay, that is this UR locator use, right? So if you type space, right, and you will encode it, so it become %20, right? Okay. Same way, if you use inverted comma, so URL is automatically converted to %27, right? So this way it's work, right? So plus means if you don't because use space, because there are a lot of %20 there, so that's why I use plus. Plus means space. Okay. Now I so we know like it's injectable, right? And we can control this artist user control variable or parameter. So using that we can inject something. SQL means malicious payload. Malicious payload is nothing but SQL queries, and based on that we'll try to fetch the user and passwords, right, or exfiltrate the data. Okay, so let's start with the order by command. So plus space. Okay, order by. So this error base is basically known as uh, error based SQL injection. So you are getting errors, so based on that you analyze things, right? Okay, so order by one. Okay, there is okay, everything is fine. Order by two. Good, it's working fine. Now I change to order by three. It's working fine. That means there are three columns, right? If you remember. Now I order by four. Then there is error. That means there are only three columns in that. So so in that table, whatever table they are using, right? And in from table, based on this artist one, they are fetching some value, and that have only four columns. That query fetches only four columns, right? Great. So now I'm using union-based SQL injections technique. So union-based means I know there are three columns. So I will use one, two, three. Okay. There is one thing I miss, that is select. Okay. Fine. It's running, right? So what we didn't get, one, two, and three. Whatever we injected, it's not rendered back, right? So what happened? So if you see, remember at that time, so if you see at that time, where id equal to 1, and we use this union select command, 1, 2, 3, but we need to, if we required our value, the logic I told you, is we need to use minus, then it come back, right? So same logic I'm going to apply here. I'm going to use hyphen or minus 1, and you can see 2 and 3 displayed. So 2 and 3, column 2 and 3 data display here, right? Why 1 is not displayed? 1 is not displayed because we are not, it means this query not fetching all the columns. It fetching only second and third column of the table. Here in here I am fetching all the three columns stars. right? And if I change it to user, sorry, yeah, if I change to user, yeah, so, or you can say pass. The select student have different, sorry, then I need to add only one column, right? Because, okay, because I'm fetching one, so I need, if I add more than one, so then there is error, right? As I told you earlier. So this way, it's only fetch two columns. That's why it's only reflecting two, right? Okay. So now I know these two and three are injectable. So there are different functions provided by SQL. So let's say if I want to see the version, so it's running 8.002 Ubuntu 20.04, right? Operating system. Okay. If I want to know the database, right? So there is a database function. The database name is what? It's this ACUART, right? So I can use column 3 also, right? If I type user. So this is the user. So whenever a web server and MySQL is running, right? So it's not running with admin's privilege, right? So this web server, when it's try to communicate, like in PPT I mentioned, here, if you see, when we make a connection, right? When we make a connection using hostname and password and username, this username is basically have some privilege, right? And based on this privilege, this particular web server or database server is running. The web server also have its privilege. Okay, so most of the time web server is running, using www user, and that have a very limited, kind of access. If you see, if I have running web server, okay, so that's the thing basically. The user will tell you what current this application is running under which user and which privilege, and if it is admin, then it's good, right? So you can get a lot of information, right? Now the real thing, now we find this thing, this database name. Now it's easy for us to identify the tables and columns, because we know there is a, this is MySQL. When we check the version, there is a MySQL data, and that MySQL, we know there is a information schema, right? So what we do, we use that, and we will, so select table name uh, from information schema dot tables. That is the table name, uh, where I always forget the name. It is called schema type. Uh, that command is basically, always forget. Table schema. Okay, where table schema. Table schema means database name is equal to what we find ACUART. Okay, so what I'm trying to what this query trying to say here is like, okay, combine this query and fetch the results, whatever results by running this query on column number two, right? And I make to three from information schema tables. We want the table names and we want this based on this. Uh, if that particular database name is ACUART, ACUART, then I run, then there's error. So what is the issue? From information schema dot table where table schema is equal to information. Sorry, this one is wrong. Okay, so select command denied to user. Okay, yes. Union select one table name, two, three from information schema table dot tables. There is a mistake. This is the command from information schema dot table where schema is select command denied to user. This I don't know what they did. I think they changed because I tried that one. They denied to this user. See mistakes. Okay, there's a mistake in information schema spelling. So, so there is a table. Uh, Table name is artist. So let's say there are multiple tables, right? In this case, there is only one table, but let's suppose there is multiple table. So there, you need to concatenate all the strings. So there is one function known as uh, group concat. Okay. So if there are more than one tables, right? So you will get all the tables, right? So if you see, there are a lot of tables. Here only one table, but if I concatenate and all the table names in a string, so logic is written in such a way it can show only one string. Okay, so that's why I need to use group concat function that combines all the use table names in a single string and show it here, right? So we know the tables. Now we know the column names. Same command. Just need to change the. There are tools for that. That exactly do this in a second. I'll show you that also. Okay. We just need that. Uh, I'm interested in user tables. So here I'm just going to make it users, right? Small with small u. Then I need to change this to table name. Okay, so these are the column names, right? So I want data. So I'm interested in like password and username, right? So what I do, I just group concatenate. What is the column name I'm interested in? One is name. Okay, and comma I'm concatenate colon, then I want pass, right? Pass, right? So from not information schema now, from users only. To concatenate three from name. Let's see, name is parameter. Name. Yeah. So I get a password basically. Uh, Now I'm concatenate. Forget what is the name. Okay. So I'm getting two fields. One is name. Name. Yeah. Then I concatenate it with this colon. Then password. So you can see I'm able to fetch the username and password from the table, right? And same like that, you will fetch other information. Okay, so means from other tables, right? So this is error-based and SQL union-based SQL injection manually. If you go for it, because sometime what happen if you organization ask to do the manual testing, they don't prefer tools because exact testing is basically show your knowledge, right? If you go for manual, I hope you can understand this. Um, I try my best to explain this, especially this union base. Okay, so let's move further to more slides. Types. Mm, okay, as I explained, right? What is error base? When you add this is error, and based on error, you will find right. In-band SQL injection. What that mean is, so when you inject the payload, you can see the error here. You can see the reflected data here. So this is in-band, same channel, right? Same browser you are seeing what you are injecting. Based on that injection, whatever you are getting back is shown like on front end, right? This is called same channel or in-band SQL injection. Okay, and this is union-based SQL injection. This is one of the commands that I mentioned earlier. Apart from this, now talk about little bit of blind SQL injection, but I'm not going to deep, but I will show you a basic thing like how it's work like. So let's say, let me check if I have that server. Uh, 192.168.1.9, that is my local server, which we have a lot of vulnerable applications. Okay, so this is admin, then admin, then we have SQL injection. I'm checking the blind, right? So let's say one, if user ID is equal to one, so let's say this is the URL of the application, and based on this parameter ID equal to one, you are fetching something, right? Okay, if I make it, I'm getting nothing. No, see, if I add the like try to break the syntax of the query, I'm getting nothing. Okay, so this is blind. You are nothing means there is no error in that. So how you can identify it? But you at least you know, right? Based on this ID, let one two, there is some data that is reflecting, right? If I change the ID, okay, and it is reflecting somewhere. It is difficult sometime if this ID is not uh, if it ID is not integer. Let's say instead of ID there is a name, and that name something like Harry. So it's very difficult to guess the other name, right? So in that case, the approach is same, right? Okay. So I know if I like if I break the context, if I break the syntax, then nothing show, no error, nothing. So in that case, what I do, my first, I will do the same thing. I will just uh, comment it. I will try. Okay, I will just hash. Okay, so when I add hash, so its query become like this. This is an integer value. Now the query become like hash, right? It's like that. So if it's hash, rest of the thing become comment, and this query execute, and it will give you some output, right? You give you some output. Okay, so you know, now you can control it, because you make the query, you inject something, but you make the query runnable, right, at the backend. So let's talk about little some functions. Select start from customers, where id equal to 1. Okay, so this one, now if I use this command and 1 equal to 1, this means after and 1 equal to 1, query is, after and 1 equal to 1, query is true, and rest of the query is true. And if you know, like, there is a and operator, and in and operator, if both the queries are true, then the output is true, right? Okay, so it's the same logic. This is called boolean based SQL injection. So it's basically blind, so we don't know what exactly happened, right? So we ask the database, we'll ask the um, question based on true or false. Okay, it's true, it's false. So this the server will reply back uh, based on our true false conditions, right? So if I type here and true, or I can write 1 equal to 1. Okay, if I write 1 equal to 1, that means we are getting something. We are getting ID, first name, and surname, right? If I change this to 1 is to 2, okay? If I change 1 is to 2, then also we are getting. Uh, and let me, sorry, it's 1, right? And 1 equal to 1, right? And then I hash, okay? It's 1 and 1 equal to 2. Sorry, 1 equal to 2. Or if I write and false, okay, and true, or 1 equal to 1 hash, because I think it's or operator, or 1 equal to 2 hash. Okay, so based on that you can analyze, right, if it is true or if it's false, right? So you can use one more thing here. Instead of that, you can use uh, okay, you can use this if condition, right? You can say like, and if 1 equal to 1, right? So I'm getting true. If this condition is false, then I'm getting false. So this is a syntax. So this is the condition, this is the true value, and this is the false value. So based on that, you will see the output. So if it is like what I say, if it is time based SQL injection, you can see I can use sleep function. I'll tell you like what is it. So you can see this sleep function is basically delayed, right? Okay, so we have less time, so I'll do one thing. I'll just show you the screenshots like how it's work exactly. Okay, so see, this Boolean base, what happened? If ID equal to 1, that means the condition true. That means you will get the data. And if I change this to ID equal to 2, that means that that particular attack, that particular condition is false basically, and you don't get any data. So whatever next query is, so we will ask, so there is a function named length. So what we do, we will ask the database server if the length of my database is greater than 5, let's say is greater than 5, right? If it is greater than 5, then it will give you results based on the true or false. Okay, if it is greater than 5, the length of the database name is greater than 5, it give you true, and if it is fast, it will give you false result, right? So based on that, you will find other things like it's very complicated. If you go for manual, we need require tool for that, because you need to check like select table name from information schema dot tables where database name is this. If the first character of that table name is a, then true false, right? Based on that, right? So based on that you can do it, right? So this is, and second one is like mm, time based is nothing there. If there is most of the, in my experience I saw like if there is like SQL injection time this blind SQL injection, in that case most of the time if there is union based SQL injection is there, then time based also there, right? Okay, out of band SQL injection. Out of band injection is nothing. Let's take an example. Let's say there is a union based SQL injection, but there is uh, no data, right? That's blind. So in that case, you need to send the data to some other server, right? So because you can't see it right on the front end, you need to send to some other server. In that case, you can send it using, suppose you host some server on AWS, right? And you want to send it to that server. So in that case, you can send using HTTP protocol, you can send using DNS protocol, right? Or you can use SMB protocol for file sharing, right? Here, if you see this function load file, actually concatenate the string, right? So it's just sent the text.txt file, so to this server, right? If you see the here, if you see is OOB, is that's a attacker host name. So whatever data you see on the front end is sent to that to a particular attacker server, right? Okay, so let's talk about mitigations. Uh, so what is mitigation for SQL injections? So there are two main mitigations. One is known as prepared statements, right? And second is known as stored procedures. So prepared statements is basically a code that is written on the PHP side. Okay, and stored procedure is basically a functions that is written on the database itself. Okay, so let's say mm, So if you see here in previous code, right? Uh, so let's say this is a database, right? We make a connection with the database in PHP, and this is a user generated. So from the front end, user add this query, drop table username. So when you use PDO, that is prepared statements, okay, and you enter, you don't enter this user input directly on it, you just bind it here, okay, instead of sending the data to directly on this query, you just, there is no data, you just, there is just a bind element, right? And there is one function that exactly checking this thing and see if there is any SQL query, just remove that query, right? So if you see, there is the bind parameter command here, right? So they just bind the string and then execute it. So it internally it's check, right? This is user input and then it's enter, right? And in this way, this parameterized means query is parameterized, and that's not execute the malicious, or you can say um, queries, SQL queries, right? Okay, store procedures. So store procedure, what happened in store procedure? If you see, store procedure, that's a store procedure. Uh, Store procedure is basically a function, right? So in that function, there is a query. So you don't need to write a query. It's a function that contain a query, right? And it's already admin developed this, right? This write this procedure, and based on that, uh, based on that, when PHP code try to access, right, run the query. So instead of calling the query, it use that, it call that parameterized, sorry, this store procedure function, right? If you see here in the code, you can see here it's called this function, okay? It's called this function get call by username, and then it's bind the parameter. Bind is same technique, like if there is any SQL query in that commented sign is there, then they remove it, right? The logic is there written, and this way, like, so which one is more secure? It's always a debatable, but I think a parameterized query is more secure uh, as compared to stored procedures, because it's parameterized query, first of all, is reside in the code, like PHP side on the web application server, and it's always there is a different libraries coming daily, right, by the PHP community, and who are working on that, so that's more secure, I think. Okay, there is one more that is called input validation. Input validation is something like, if you remember this ID parameter, when we are fetching from the URL, instead directly send to it, you just use a regression query, and if there is some commented, some hash, some inverted commas there, you just remove that. Okay, just remove that, and based on that, you can write your own input validation functions, right? This is WAF. WAF is basically is a force defense layer. It's basically a defense layer at a network level. It's not directly on the code side. It is used mostly when sometime what happen, there is a attack happen, so you want to because if you go for a patch, or if you go for fix it, you require time, right, to write a code for that. So in that case, we require something at the network layer, like our CDN type, or our on network side. So we will write some signature based things, and we will block some queries, right? And this is an immediate, you can say, mitigation technique. Okay. The course and career perspective. If I talk about it, like, it's important, and that's why I want to discuss with you. So why this course, right? And what is the, if we talk about careers perspective, like how many like job opportunities are there, right, in the market? So when we talk about job opportunities, see, as broadly, if you see, information security is a very recent thing. It's not like a old it's not very old as compared to development and HR and other. So it's very recent. Okay, so if you broadly classify information security, there are like three main you can say departments in which. Okay, so one is like your offensive security, second one is your defensive security, and third one is like your compliance part. So each organization, good organization, like each organization, they have these three departments. And nowadays there is defensive offense, like the purple team is always there. It's a new categorization, and there is a research, cyber research is one of the more. Okay, so if you go for this offensive security, so you have further classified the, in job perspective. I'm saying it's like you have VAPT, it has a vulnerability assessment penetration testing, right? Then you have manual penetration testing. Okay, then you have a red teaming in that. Okay, so if you do your work right, as a like independent researcher, a bounty hunter, right? So these are the categories you will get the job, right? Or second thing is like you are offensive. Offensive, there is mostly SOC incident, then there is incident response. There is a blue team. So when I talk red team is like a expert on that. So red team is something. It's not like to just give you a site and just ask like do it and do the testing. Right? It's not like that. It's targeted. Suppose if they want to hack some corporation, so they will give you URL, not even URL. Just give you some domain name and just ask like, okay, you have 1 year time. You need to hack this. So from social engineer attacks to web application attacks, because everything starts from web. So whatever information you get, you start from web, right? So whatever enumeration, whatever information gathering you start from web. So that's, it's not a single person, it's like a team of members in. And that's like it's a topmost, like if you want. And in that team there is like your web application assessment guys, your network assessment guys, then you have this forensic guys are there. So this is a whole thing, like. Okay, so apart from the there is defensive, I told you, like blue team, incident response, SOC response. Incident response, SOC, this is the jobs where you can go with this course. And who can join, that is important. Who can join? Anyone can join this course who is like interested in a hacking thing. Because see, if you want to become a security professional, you start from web, right? So it's important for them to understand web. Or if you go for, let's say, for a SOC, and if they give you like monitor the alerts, right? And you need to monitor it, right? You monitor it because everything nowadays is in web. Like suppose if you have a firewall that using different port numbers, but the interface is developed in web, HTTP. Your FTP also accessed by web, your other service also access file. So if you are monitoring the alerts, at least they know now what is SQL injection. That's why he identify the alerts. And suppose if you get the name SQL injection is there, but if you go for incident response, in that case you will add more, means do the analysis, right? And then give you a report in that case, I think. And if you are manager, right, somewhere, and some attack has happened, and you are a CISO, and your CISO come and ask like, okay, uh, do it, and give me some solution for that. You ask your team, they give you. But if you at least know what is SQL injection, how it's happening, then you can like convince the team, right? Otherwise your juniors will like make you like they play smartly, right? So that's why I think bug bounty hunters, researchers, researchers who want to actually write some papers, do some research on some attacks and write some features, they also can join and help this course. This course helps a lot, right, on that. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you, team, and